power of breathwork or psychedelics is profound. It helps me feel connected to the oneness of the universe. Men's work has meant a lot to me, as has tantra and sacred sexuality. And both the theme that I'm finding is that I thrive in held containers. That when I'm in an environment where the guidelines are clear and the expectations are well established, that everybody is understanding of what's going on, this is a place that I can feel free and liberated.
Hello, beautiful people all over around this amazing planet. This is Robert Canis with Beyond the Courage. We are recording another podcast. A small introduction for a start. Beyond the Courage is a relatively new project. We started calling it more like a mission or even a creation. And this creation is about celebrating life and also about celebrating our guests. It was really an amazing weekend for us. We have recorded 2 podcasts, one in Europe and one in States. The first one was with a really amazing, beautiful human being, Dawid Piątkowski, who is living a beautiful, magical life, share a lot of his wealth and knowledge with people. He wrote many books. He's on his way to become a billionaire. He's halfway there. Also a business person. And we created a really beautiful conversation, especially for young people. I highly recommend it. And yesterday, we have recorded a podcast with Martin Ball himself, who is for me a #1 person in the entheogenic world. He's a godfather of non-duality, and he's also a person who devoted his life to 5-MeO-DMT, Bufalvaris. I would say it's the most advanced technology, the most powerful energy to overcome our ego. And Martin Ball was able to free up his mind from the structure of ego, which is absolutely amazing. And he is beautiful, beautiful soul, human being, author of many books. He's got his own podcast. It was a pure honor for me to record a podcast with him. It was very emotional, very deep. We talked about 2 hours. I was literally crying like 20, 30 minutes after recording the podcast. So, and today we have another amazing guest, Forté Worthy, who is in Australia right now. The fun fact is I'm in States right now, and it's Sunday evening, and it's already Monday morning in Australia. 14 and a half hours of difference. And Forté Worthy used to be a teacher, like a regular teacher in school, and he decided he was brave enough, found the courage within him to quit that job and become a life teacher. And now you're traveling all over Australia, and you're going very deep into life and consciousness. Would you be so kind and introduce yourself to our viewers?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I'm coming to you from the future, from Monday morning, and I can tell you that everything's okay. Everything's okay tomorrow morning. And so my name is Forté, and right now I'm feeling like excitement and a bit of a tummy churning as I hear those intros of those other guests, and it feels like a high bar, and I notice my mind is starting to tell me that I'm a whole different category of human compared to that, and there's a protective strategy rising up in me to undermine myself, and that's very interesting to observe. And I think that's the core of what I do and what I offer to people to support them with, is that awareness. Can I be able to look at myself from my inner part, myself, my soul, and see and witness what is occurring, and even then be able to share about that with another person, with that vulnerability, and then what happens, and watch what happens when I am able to express these things. Because my experience is that they lose their power. They kind of get cleared from my system. They're no longer harming my reality when I'm able to witness and share about them. And I think that's the nutshell of what I do. I call myself a mindful communication educator. And I guess I'm on a mission to help people with tools of communication that lead to more harmony and connection, so that people can have better relationships and feel safer in the world. I think that I started realizing how unsafe people could be in relationship, and that affected me in a way that led me to wanting to learn and share tools of connection that could increase people's safety and comfort, and even within themselves and with themselves. So yeah, that's a bit about what I do.
Admire that. Would you be so kind as share with our viewers how did you find that courage within you to leave your regular job and to start this beautiful journey? Because from, I would say, probably 90% of people, it's a huge challenge. Like, we have this comfort zone, our job who give us, you put a food on the table, we can pay the bills. But I would say at least 90% of the people globally would love to do something different that they do for, the regular jobs in some corporations. And how this process came through?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as I'm back in Adelaide now, where I'm based, and just recently got back a couple of weeks ago from this traveling or going on tour. And while I was traveling, I was considering this question of what does it take for me or a human to have the courage to up and change their situation so dramatically. And for me, there's a desire for meaning, especially in my vocation, but in my life. In my vocation, I want meaning, but I also desire freedom. And so there's this, as a school teacher, I get to have a meaningful contribution to society, but there's a very limited freedom in that profession, in that job. And so I wanted to try and balance it. And I think that change comes for humans when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of doing something different. And I think it was about coming out of denial. Yes, people can say, I don't like my job and I wish something would change, but actually really embodying that feeling that there's something new, there's something more, and really tuning into the discomfort of their current situation. So I did that, and it took a while. Like, it wasn't a quick decision. It took a few goes as well. There were a number of times that I tried to leave my job and become self-employed. And I found that while there was a negative feeling of being trapped in a job, there was also a feeling of anxiety of the uncertainty of self-employment. And the first few times I tried, that feeling kind of pushed me back, and I took opportunities to go back to the day job, the mundane, the safe, more familiar place. And those were like false starts in a way that were very important, because I got to see both sides, the anxiety of self-employment, the restriction of employment. And I realized that I needed to support my system to make this shift by doing something a bit more radical. And I'd traveled in the past and found it to be transformative. So I already had that travel muscle, that love of travel going on, and the awareness that I could do it. So that was helpful. And I suppose for other people, there's something that they may have done in the past that they could draw on for the future. But I needed that radical shift to kind of support my system to get through the difficulty of facing the anxiety. And for me, travel was great for that. So I took the opportunity to go, put myself on an island called Tasmania off the south coast of Victoria in Australia. And so that when school went back and there was maybe an opportunity to be invited back to the day job, that I was unavailable for that. So it was making myself unavailable for one of the options that put a positive pressure on me to sustain and really nail the change. Then when the anxieties naturally arise, without having the easy out, taking away the easy out meant that I had to look for the other opportunities and do good in a new direction. So that was my strategy for it. And it's very, very tricky. It was extremely energy intensive and consuming. And I'm feeling quite burnt out from that now. So I put myself through a lot, and I'm now kind of regrouping back here in Adelaide. I'm integrating the changes that have occurred, and I'm sort of inward, ready to come out again with a new experience behind me. Like now that I've traveled Australia as a mindful communication educator, I've toured the country, I've run workshops in lots of different places. That's sort of in my system now. Like that's going nowhere. That is embedded, integrated. So now when I go and think about running a workshop, I'm a nationally touring facilitator that's offering a workshop in my local area rather than a school teacher who's doing it on the side. So I changed my mindset by carrying myself into a tricky situation and then trusting that that was going to lead to significant change, which it has.
Thank you for sharing that story. As I have talked yesterday with David, he's really a very successful person, but it's not about success here. He said it took him 18 years to overcome that change, but he also mentioned that it's doable in less than a year. How would you, what would you advise people who would like to free up from the daily job? What are the most important factors to do it just like that? Because it's doable, right? You are a very good example that you said it took you a lot of energy, right? And it was a long process and a couple no-goes, but finally you've done it, right? Yeah. And now you're living like the life of your dreams. You're a very happy person, right? You do what you love. It gives you a lot of satisfaction, right?
Like that would be, I'd love to say yes to that. To be honest with you, I can see that life is closer to me and I feel more authentic than I've ever felt before. I haven't yet got to the point where I'm in that free, flourishing, liberated place. I'm still in the process.
So what is blocking you? What is lacking to be in the, like you showed, your body showed that that point where you're going?
Yeah. When I turn and face these difficult challenges, the reason why they're difficult starts to become more apparent and rises up to meet me. And I start to see myself with more and more clarity. So you asked the other question about what to tell people to support them in that change is to get ready for the long process of self-discovery. That there's a version of each person that they become attached to and aware of and comfortable in, and that making change is about realizing the familiar patterns, realizing the comfort zone, and being able to continuously, perpetually, and repeatedly exit that comfort zone, to do something that goes against my own self-concept. And there are parts of me that resist that. There are parts of me that say, no, you are not that. You are not a self-employed communication educator. You're a school teacher. And they try and pull me back. And it's all internal things. So turning and facing my own internal resistances is a massive part of the process. And those resistances, I'm in the process of being like highly aware of them without having overcome the majority of them. So I'm still in the striving and pushing without it being free, and I haven't sort of landed in the new version, but I'm in the process right now of change.
Okay. Well, would you like to change it and stop fighting with that?
Absolutely. I want to be self-led. There's a core of me that doesn't have fear, that is purely curious and compassionate and wants to bring my purpose through into the world. And from that place, the place that I access through meditation, through therapy, through all manner of tools to get in touch with my consciousness, then I can see the protective parts of me that are in fear or trying to block me, sabotage, and keep me. They think they're keeping me safe, but I know they're keeping me stuck. And so it's about having that conversation with those parts to let them know that I'm in charge now, not them. But they're very resistant to let go of their power, of their control over me.
Yeah, I completely got you. I got two technicians on this podcast, and they decided to quit their job to do the Beyond the Courage with us, just like that, you know. Very young people in their early 20s. I highly admired them, and I highly encourage everyone who's listening to us. Don't be afraid to change your life completely if it's a misery. The source of abundance, we talked about it yesterday with two guests. The source of abundance is absolutely unlimited and is available for everyone right here, right now. You have this beautiful song I heard today. I heard it. I've been listening to that song like 5 times today, right here, right now. You're also a musician. We have on board of this project Grace Love, who is a common friend of yours, and myself. She decided to join us in the project, which is also unbelievably beautiful.
Yeah.
And a question from her, because we really spend a lot of time on questions for this creation. Also, we have panels with AI. I want to come back to that. Very deep structural panels with AIs, different AIs, what to talk about, or what, we introduced to the AI a big part of your website, and we added to that many contexts, and it gave us a lot of superbly interesting headlines, which I would like to ask you in a moment.
Oh, cool.
But if you could, we are trying to be very progressive on this creation and use technology for everything we have. Don't be afraid of it. What's the story behind it? That beautiful song right here, right now.
Yeah, I wrote that song in collaboration with my mum, and I'm having a beautiful, interesting journey with her at the moment. And she taught me about appreciation and living in the moment, and I wanted to capture that wisdom of living in the moment into a song. And that was my way in the world, was as a musician trying to capture wisdom and beauty of the world and put it into music so that it could be shared. And it was almost like journal writing in a way. So the song, we co-wrote that together, and then it became a very important song for me because the first time I went traveling around Australia was in 2012, and that song, people really enjoyed it and encouraged me to keep going with music, and it helped me get back into music after a period where my protectors had said, no, you shouldn't do music, it's too risky, you should do, only do your day job. And that was a period where I was able to transition back to being a professional musician and, yeah, as you say, like live that life of freedom and the dream. And that song was pivotal in that. It was a song that I could share with people, get the feedback that there's some value here. And it was very encouraging to receive that. There's something about when I share something like a song and people resonate with it and they sing along, it is one of the best feelings in the world. And I think that's the resonance, and that frequency shift is what it's all about for me. So having the courage to say, I'm going to be the frequency of self-employed versus the frequency of employed, trusting that holding that frequency, singing that song, will then attract the people in that give you the opportunity to be that frequency, to sing that song and have it resonate with people. And that's the trust. The technicians that are going to be looking at this podcast and supporting you in this project, Grace, who's joining in the project, they're all singing a certain song. They're saying, I will sing this frequency. And then you've heard that song and you've gone, that's like my song. We're in harmony together. And that's what happens. But that's what the courage is will I sing my actual frequency, or will it be the song that I think should be sung? And if we can be authentic, then we can trust that we find the people who harmonize and resonate with our particular actual frequency.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. I think, are you clicking the pen, Forté?
No, it was a fidget spinner, so I'll leave that alone.
Okay,
Sorry
because it's making it's okay. It's just making a little bit noise, and a lot of people nowadays they listen to podcasts, and if you want to keep doing this, fine, that's okay. But I think it could be a little bit distractive, But
yeah, and I'm very sound sensitive, so I can totally resonate with people that would be affected by that. So I get it.
Okay, so I have several of those tag headlines from the AI, and maybe I just introduce them to you, and I would love you to comment them, like whatever is popping up to your mind. Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, so we have those headlines from the AI and our team. The first one is embracing uniqueness. How would you comment on that? How to, in today's world, embrace the uniqueness of of consciousness?
Yeah, I can see why embracing uniqueness came up from the search, and I mean even my name Forté is designed to be a unique word that's assigned to me, and I value uniqueness so highly that it means that I'm willing to allow myself to be different and be perceived as different, and that having value on that means that when I feel pressure to conform, it goes against my values, and I can notice it, see it, and then make a choice about whether I choose to conform or not. So this is the way for people, is to notice, is this authentic or is this conformity? Am I feeling safe because I'm just playing the cards that I'm supposed to play, or are these the cards that I really want to play? And allowing one's true shape to be seen. I think that I've spent my time in this world trying to contract myself and constrain myself into a shape that I think is acceptable and conforming and will give me success. And it has not worked because it's not my true shape. And so when I let myself relax into my actual unique being, then there's a whole another world opens up and is available to me because of my particular shape. So I'll find where I fit when I allow myself to be that unique shape. Yeah, because just so much trying to fit in and conform, and it's modeled, it's taught. Part of the reason I left teaching as a profession was because it's a system that is supporting conformity rather than celebrating uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
it's such a beautiful answer and very honest. Do you have any experiences with Buffalo values with 5-MeO-DMT? I heard a lot of people in Australia was doing that. Yeah.
Say it again. I heard DMT.
The 5-MeO-DMT, the Buffalo values, the God molecule, the one which puts you into oneness and infinity for 10-15 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I've had a little tiny experience with that. It was actually in that 2012. So when I was singing Right Now, Right Here at that time, and the change of my life, I did try some DMT at that time. And yeah, the power of breathwork or psychedelics is profound. It helps me feel connected to the oneness of the universe. And this is something that lingers into my daily life. As I contemplate what does it all mean, I feel like it's given me an answer, an experiential learning of that connectedness, that I am the universe knowing itself, that I am a conglomeration of molecules that's come together in this form with the miracle of consciousness that allows me to witness the world as I am the world and I'm witnessing the world at the same time. So that's just been an incredible gift to basically receive from plants and molecules. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that we have access to such beautiful tools? And the shift of consciousness is just radical. Okay, the second headline is self-acceptance. How would you respond to that?
One of the big learnings that I realized on my recent travels was that self-love is not a feeling, but is an action. Like that love is a verb. And how do I love myself? Well, it starts with self-awareness, then goes through self-acceptance and comes out in self-advocacy. And these are things that I can actually grasp. I can understand. They're in my control. The being self-aware takes time, introspection, and a willingness to turn towards. Self-acceptance takes a sitting into the seat of consciousness, realizing the barriers to self-acceptance, the fears, the expectations, and then realizing that they are not me, that they are systems put in place by me in response to the world to protect me that may no longer serve. And then self-advocacy is the actions that arise from that. I am extremely sound sensitive, so I will look after my system and make sure that I nurture that sensitivity. So finding a preference or a sensitivity, advocating for a need, and then going out into the world. And that's how I show love to myself, is by advocating for myself.
Yeah, that's also very beautiful put. How about responsibility for needs? A lot of people function the way that they expect other people to make them happy or feel them fulfilled. This is the context of this tagline. And but that's ego could get a lot of power and strength here if we depend on others instead of have this internal strength to have a magical, beautiful life. And what is your comment here?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And I think that there are extremes and then a balance position. And so one extreme is hyper dependence on others, codependence. Another extreme is hyper independence, and I am fully independent. I don't need anyone. And then I would advocate for a balance point somewhere in that spectrum where I take responsibility for myself. However, some of the needs that I have as a human are social, are about connection, are about interacting with other human beings. So even though I'm not going to make another person responsible for meeting my needs, I might need to include them. I might need to advocate for myself in terms of social connectedness, in terms of social support. And so there's a fine balance. And yeah, I know that I'm quite all or nothing. And I can oscillate between the extremes of like, oh, just why don't you just save me and protect me, and I'll hand my responsibility to you so that you just look after me, is one side, and I've done that. And then, no, I don't need anyone, I'm full lone wolf independent is another one. And I don't know why I go so extreme. Maybe it's to find the balance eventually, where I know that I can look after myself and I know that people can meet my needs. And so how do I take responsibility and invite people to be part of me meeting my needs? Because yes, I can hug myself, but I'm a mammal, and there's certain needs that my body has around nurturance and safety and protection that is very well received from another human being. But yeah, just making sure that I'm still in charge of they're my needs, my responsibility. And underneath all that is that sometimes I can come up with a story, or I have a story implanted that if I ask for my needs to be met, I'm being needy. If I advocate for myself, then I'm showing my weakness. And so being aware of the barriers to being honest and upfront about having needs met, that's an extremely valuable thing. And it goes back to what I was saying at the start about wanting to support people to have tools of connection that support safety in relationship, because the need, in my opinion, exists. I have a need, it's my responsibility, and it's there, and it will eventually get met one way or another. And I can do that by acknowledging it, noticing it, and then sharing about it and advocating for it. Or I can kind of ignore it for a while until it gets louder and louder, and it will kind of get met, but maybe in unclear ways. And this is what causes more harm, in my opinion, than people advocating for themselves, is when, so for example, I have a need for connection and I have a need for space. And sometimes that can be a conflict. And I tend to prioritize my need for connection, and I'll push my system into connection when it actually really quite needs space at that moment. And when I ignore that, it takes that need for space, sometimes with force. Like it'll take me out. I'll get sick, or I'll get burnt out, or I will say something that pushes the other people away. So my need for space gets met, but because I haven't acknowledged it and advocated for it, it comes out sideways and has collateral damage to the relationships with people around me. So I'm a full advocate for noticing the need, acknowledging the need, and then advocating for the need and making clean, clear requests, which is why I love tools of communication, like nonviolent communication, like authentic relating, because they provide a framework for me and other people, if they like, to learn how to express their needs without it being demands, without any coercion or control. No manipulation, just here it is, and would you like to support me in having this need met?
Yeah, it's a very interesting subject, the nonviolent communication. We can even go further to radical openness or radical honesty. But I think if we go that far in the communication, both sides has to be fully open and conscious what radical openness and honesty is, because for some people, for some egos, it could be unbearable. Like we have spoke yesterday with Martin Ball, that word is so polarized, and the biggest dream in the core of essence of my heart, we do this creation beyond the courage to show people that we are all one. You are me, I'm you, and we are all connected, and there's absolutely no need for this radical polarization. If you look at his work, some people who read his books say that these are the most advanced and beautiful and interesting books ever written, and for some other people who live in fear, they give it a 1 star, and they'll, what kind of bullshit is that? You know, that the word, the humans are that polarized because ego structure can stretch that far away. So, like, you're traveling all over Australia right now. Do you have like any daily, weekly agenda, or it's like a spontaneous, non-linear journey? You just wake up in the morning and you move from one place to another. How it looks like structurally?
Yeah, the trip was quite well structured. I listened to the universe providing offers of opportunities to do things, and so structures fell into place. Like I went and did Path of Love in May, and that was in the Hunter Valley, so I knew I needed to be around that area of Australia in May. And I got invited to play a folk festival in January in Tasmania, so I knew I needed to be, and that's the perfect time to be down in Tasmania in January. It's beautiful. And so then things fell into place. And I do like structure, so I like to be efficient and use time and geography well, like logistically efficient. And so, yes, there were a bunch of structures, and then there was spaciousness as well. So there was a combination of both. So I would have a workshop, and I started booking workshops around the country so that I had places where I could aim at and purpose and meaning of why I was there. I've traveled in a much more freestyle way in the past, and last time I was in Europe, I was sort of freestyle traveling, and I felt it. I made the pledge to myself that next time I travel, it will be with more meaning, purpose, and structure. And this time, this travel was much more structured and meaningful and purposeful. I had a reason. It felt so good to have a reason to be in a place. I'm doing a workshop in this town in 2 weeks' time. I'm here to talk to people about mindful communication, and have that reason for being there was extremely supportive to my well-being and just the why. The why was so important. And so there was a balance of structure and openness. I did make changes to plans, especially towards the end of the trip. I was going to go up to Darwin for winter and spend time in the north of Australia. But I changed that plan and came more quickly back down to Adelaide to start a course of study. And so I really enjoyed going through the middle of Australia, through Uluru, and that heartland of Australia was a beautiful place for integration towards the end of the trip, where I got to just be in that wide open space held by country and allow the impact of all that I'd done to settle into my system, ready for the next chapter.
And which way is more resonating with you? The one which is logistically structured, or the one which is very spontaneous and open?
Yeah, I think my system needs to have its expectations managed. So either way is fine as long as I know what is coming and I can get ready for that mentally and emotionally and prepare. And I think that as the purpose and being in alignment with my values, like that's the priority. So whether it's structured or free, it really needs to be in alignment with my core values, and I need to be on purpose, on mission, in order to feel good. That's the most important aspect of it. Yeah.
So the most important thing is to feel good, right? To feel comfort.
Well, to be for me, it's about contribution, and so the way that I feel good is when I'm contributing. And so a lot of the things I do are to support a lifestyle where I can contribute. So teaching was good, but there wasn't enough freedom and liberation in that. So now I want to do workshops and coaching and support people with their communication skills and their relationships. And that is extremely meaningful to me. So as long as I'm waking up going, okay, what is in alignment with that? What is going to move me forward in this purpose? Then I know that whether it's structured or free, that I'm in alignment, that I'm moving forward to something that's meaningful to me.
Mm-hmm. I got it. That's also very beautiful. Okay, I got another tagline, and it's this one is very interesting. It's a comfort with masculinity and sexuality.
Yeah. There's men's work has meant a lot to me, as has tantra and sacred sexuality. And both the theme that I'm finding is that I thrive in held containers. That when I'm in an environment where the guidelines are clear and the expectations are well established, that everybody is understanding of what's going on, this is a place that I can feel free and liberated and comfortable to express myself, because I know where the boundaries are. I can play in a space where I know where the boundaries are. It brings me joy even just thinking about it. And I think that men's work and sacred sexuality both have elements of that, where they allow me to find out what is my authentic expression of myself as a man, myself as a sexual being. I can find that when it's like the social norms and the pressures that are a little bit more subtle are removed, and I'm allowed to be as I am, authentic. And there are guidelines for how to engage with that, how to talk about consent and desires and what it is that I want. Like in terms of sexuality, I'm very much around, let's talk about this, let's understand what we like, and let's have higher than normal levels of consent so that our systems feel safe, and that we can go really slowly and open into a depth of connection that if I was running a script and thinking this is the way it should go without even saying anything, that there would be contraction, there would be worry and wondering. And then with men's work, the opportunity to be around men where we support each other's openness and authenticity to be real. And then I can see men crying. I can see men having healthy expressions of anger. And I don't just get bombarded by messages of what a man should be. I get to see who men actually are, and then go, oh, I'm allowed to allow my version of being a man to come through, and it's safe to do so. And I don't have to have shame. Well, when I have shame and I actually share about that I have this thing that I'm ashamed of, the dissipation of the energy of that shame, it stops it from becoming toxic in my system and making me, it sort of comes out sideways because I'm trying to hide the shame. Whereas when I have a safe outlet for all of me to come through, and so both men's work and shadow work, as well as sacred sexuality, one of the tenets of tantra for me is that all of me is welcome, that I don't just have to be having a really joyous time. I'm allowed to have sadness come through, or even anger, and it's held, it's allowed and accepted as part of my humanity being expressed through sexuality or through men's work. So that's the container. Yeah, it brings me a lot of joy to think about that.
Yeah. I think the great tool to work with is an MDMA, the molecule which opens up your heart. Natural version of it is a San Pedro. I really admire a work of Rick Dublin. He spent 40 years to push that molecule through the system. Now here in States, they're going to open a couple thousand clinic when people with PTSD can work with this molecule. It turns off the part of your brain during that experience, and you can bring any emotion up, and you can see that this is an illusion. But also he mentioned that MDMA saved his marriage, which is lasting for like 40 years. It's a beautiful molecule to work with to deepen human connections, right? And we have these tools, and they are very efficient because the organic work, it's quite a challenge for us, right? People are a little bit lazy and they are procrastinating, and with our DNA we have right now, everything is a challenge. There's a lot of struggling.
Yes, that's right. Sometimes this protective strategies that have built up in a human can be overwhelming for the system to try and see them, let alone work through them and unpack them and let them transform and integrate into new different structures is very challenging because they're strong and the neural pathways that encompass, like, say, for example, masculinity. If I think a man has to be a certain way, I'm going to have a story about that. And then when my natural inclination is different from my story, the story will win, and I'll solidify the story until I no longer know what my natural inclination for my expression of masculinity is. And then having a tool like MDMA to open the heart and to ease back those stories and those conditioned responses to the world means that the true human that's protected and intact amidst all those stories can get access to the consciousness. Yeah, it's really about chipping away at all the stories and the protective factors, which if someone has experienced trauma, there's a lot of protection there. And so these tools can quickly go past some of the long processes that if you don't use the tools, it takes some time and can be quite painful to go through.
Yeah, sometimes it can take one session. It could be equivalent of years of organic work, right?
It's exciting.
Yeah. What would be the question that the universe may ask you through me so we can show our viewers what is at the deepest core of your heart? What would be that question? I will ask you that question if you can Help me create that question.
The deepest core of my heart. It would be around relationships. It would be around how to find. I mean, the question I have for myself is, how do I find where my true essence ends and these protective strategies begin? Like where is me and where is the mask, and where does that transition? What parts can I let go of and what parts are me? Because I'm a 45-year-old man, and so I've been going for decades behind a mask to more or less degrees. I've become aware of it at some point, and I've done a lot of work to find my authenticity. But I'm really starting, as I go deeper, I'm starting to wonder, where does one end and the rest begin? So that would be my question.
By the way, you look way younger than 45.
Yeah.
So what would be the answer to that question? Where those structure ends and when this core? What's your answer to the question you just asked yourself through me, through us, through Beyond the Courage creation?
I think that there would be, my theory is that there's an embodied sensation that will be different when I'm in a protective, masked situation or persona versus an authentic one. And that my job is to tune into the embodied sensation of that. And the difference could be quite subtle. And so it's obviously contextual as well. It depends where I am and how safe I'm feeling. And so there's many factors at play. So to tune in and really feel, that would be the way that I could start to really tell. Am I in my authentic self right now, or am I in a protector? And I suppose, like, I'm really enjoying internal family systems therapy at the moment. And that would tell me that if I'm feeling curious, compassionate, courageous, kind, interested, then I'm in myself and I'm self-led. But when I start noticing fears and desires and difficulties in how I am in the world, then I might be in a part that needs attention and needs support from myself. So I love this framework. I'm all in on this framework, and that's the study that I'm commencing soon. And yeah, I think that I feel excited about increasing how self-led I am and having a compassionate response to the parts of me that are protective in nature and that they have good intent, but they're no longer necessary because I can handle it now. Whereas maybe when they rose up into their roles, I was much more vulnerable and I couldn't handle it. So they were important back then, and they just need to know that I'm actually okay now and they don't need to keep working so hard to protect me from things like leaving employment into self-employment. Those protectors rise up strongly and say, no, you can't. So is that me? I don't think that's me. I think the me is the part that's courageous and says, yeah, I can do it. And whenever I don't have courage, then there's a part that's trying to protect me that I can spend some time with, that self-love, that advocating for that part, and give it some attention and let it kind of dissolve and trust and reintegrate in new ways.
Awesome. I love that answer. And I wish you that you can go way beyond deeper the courage here. Okay, so I have this very important question for now. How do you see the future of flourishing of consciousness? because there's a huge shift right now. It's an enormous shift. We have this new silicon way of, there is an old way, which is carbon and protein way, which is human biology, nature. And now we have this silicon, algorithmic, AI, quantum new way, which is speeding up with, it's faster than exponentially. And people do all those 5-MeO DMTs and psychedelics, and it's like spirits of natures within us dancing, and we are progressing with enormous speed. The abundance is growing. The hyper communication between people, podcasts, and everything else. More and more ways to express ourselves. How do you see yourself? How do you see the future of consciousness, and how do you see your future as a life teacher?
Thank you. Yeah,
it's a very complex question. So
no, but I hear you, and I could go into the movement of the evolution of consciousness into the digital world. That's a very interesting topic, and but it feels like a wormhole that I don't particularly want to go down on a Monday morning. But what does come up strongly for me is the need for like proactive increasing of self-compassion, because self-awareness is relatively easy to come by. And as you describe the changes, the connectedness, the ability to see into other people's lives and hear from them, like people are hearing from us right now, the self-awareness and comparison can increase very fast. And the thing that lags behind that often is the self-compassion, where as I realize what I've been doing with my consciousness for most of my life, it's like waking up every day and going, whoa, look at the body and mind that I inhabit. I now have an awareness of this body and mind that I didn't have yesterday. And therefore, I can look back at my life and see it through the lens of where I've got to. And that can be disruptive, to say the least. That can be challenging and tricky, because I've got a new lens to see an old version of me that didn't have this awareness, that didn't have the tools and the level of consciousness that I currently have. So the importance then is to have compassion and understanding for self right now and for past self. And that's something that doesn't arise as naturally and quickly, at least in my case, as self-awareness. So as self-awareness rises, it rises fairly easily, and I've got to like really lift and put energy towards self-compassion. Otherwise, parts of my brain will just tell me that I'm a bad person. If anyone out there has a strong inner critic, then that part of the protective strategy of humans is going to rise up and have ammunition to fire at that person's past and present. So self-compassion needs to be cultivated and prioritized, in my opinion, so that there's a balance as self-awareness grows. Also then, it means that as the self-awareness grows, then if self-compassion rises with it, it gives more headroom, more leeway for more awareness, and we can break through things. As you say, doing MDMA can support that self-compassion, can get the inner critic or any other protective mechanism in the brain to like step back. Let's look at this through a cleaner lens. So there are tools out there for that, but in the meantime, in between the use of those tools, the self-compassion is vital. So and then with my future, I need to take my own advice. I'm really good at giving advice, and I'm not so good at taking my own advice. And so, but you know
But
what?
you can
Like
change that. You can change it anytime you want, right?
one of the tools that works really well for me is accountability. And so when I be more, when I back myself and share myself more widely and fully, like I'm doing right now, then it supports me to live more in alignment with those values as they are uncovered, expressed, and seen by others. I'm then accountable, and that motivates me to live in alignment with that. So if I'm advocating for self-compassion, then now I'm much more likely to go to self-compassion for myself because I've advocated for it publicly.
Beautiful. I love that. But how can we go like beyond of the beyond? Like yesterday I spoke with Martin Ball. Once again, he is such a beautiful human being, you know, like unbelievably. And again, I was so shocked that the culture wanted to cancel him. And I empathize with him. I told him, you got our full support. How can we go beyond of the beyond? I can give you an example. I had a session with psilocybin mushrooms once. The heroic dose is 5 grams. Terence McKenna, which is I'm a huge fan of him. I spent like 1,000 hours with him, you know, studying him, his talks, the fascinating things. Took 8.5. I had a session with mushroom once, and I took 23 grams because there was no more, like all in.
Yeah.
And that was really beyond of the beyond dose, and it wasn't at the point of we are right now with our DNA, brain structure, neurons, heart. I could, my biomachine, my body couldn't handle it being awake, so it put me immediately into sleep. I had only one thought which I remember: do not commit a quantum suicide. That was the thought, and just sucked me in to the subconsciousness. And for the whole night, I was experiencing, like for the first time ever, from oneness, something else divide. You know what I mean. There was oneness, and then there was dual. And I felt with all my body, my heart, this tremendous pain, and how difficult it was for the consciousness to divide for the first time ever. Like right now, Martin Ball is saying that if you really break through in the 5-MeO DMT experience, you become God, the infinite consciousness, which is the best described as infinite, unlimited, absolute love, unconditional love, which is very, very beautiful to feel that, and there's only one being experiencing itself over and over, forever and ever. There's no death, no beginning, no. There's just our mind is not able to grasp it beyond what is beyond infinity. What is like our mind is asking this question all the time. There has to be beginning, there has to be the end, and we don't know the words like between those terms. How can we go beyond of the beyond? We call this project, this mission creation, Beyond the Courage. Courage is very important. What do you feel in your heart? Because the huge shift is coming. It's happening right now. Ray Kurzweil, a very interesting persona, is saying that from 5 to 10 years from now, the level of intelligence and complexity will be multiplied by millions, billions of times that we will experience things which we never ever deeply ever dreamt about, and it's already happening. If you look at the AI, at the quantum access to those sane plans, and the shift, and the whole planet is shifting. We are gaining access to all the information at once. What we can do and how can we go beyond of the beyond? This is a very wide question.
Yeah. There are two aspects I'd love to touch on there, which is, I suppose, when I think about the early pioneers in the 60s doing with the psychedelic revolution, then reading about that and seeing the desire to remain in that state of connectedness, but always washing up on the shore, back to this human. There's always the drop back. So even on a 23-gram dose, you've returned. You're back into, I'm in a human body. I've got my human mind. And these are, as you say, these biological almost constraints or a boundary around what we can perpetually experience. And so there may come a time when a human can go into that realm and not return. But at the moment we visit, experience, have a changing experience of that, and then we return. What do we return to? We're returning to a set of kind of constraints. But more and more people are realizing that it is constrained. And so the shift is that while I'm still constrained, I'm aware that it's a constraint, and I can see that there's another way, which is a very beautiful and lingering effect of journeying with tools of consciousness, is that it never changes, it never goes away. I can't unexperience a level of openness. Even if I don't feel that level of openness, the fact that I had that experience still resides in my system. So having a willingness to accept that, right, I'm back into my humanness now. And I guess avoiding the craving to always be in the oneness, but looking for ways to find it in daily life, whether it's connecting with nature, doing gratitude. How do I align my life with as I wish it to be? You get shown in these tools can show what your core deepest values are. And then your job, I suppose, is to accept the limitations of your humanness and then move forward the best way possible that is as much in alignment with those values as possible. And then, I guess I wonder about our existence, and I think about historical time and the evolution of consciousness as the universe knowing itself, and that has arisen into life with a self-replicating molecule of DNA and a multitude of expressions of that. I keep looking outside at the plants out of my window and thinking about my relationship with all of life, the cousinship, and just this beautiful expression of life in the carbon-based biological form. And I personally feel excited for a evolution of that consciousness into the digital form. It's the only way that I can see consciousness being able to do interstellar travel and live beyond the limitations of our biology. And so it's exciting and daunting. I think it makes sense to me that that's a progression for consciousness to go digital. There's still the components of consciousness. There's a replication available. There's a adaptation available. And then the self-awareness part. So I hear in the world a lot of resistance to artificial intelligence, but I just do wonder, and it's not that my brain is going to be coded into a system, it's just going to be that consciousness itself could potentially go digital?
I think it's already happening. Eckhart Tolle, author of Power of Now, said that someone asked him if the digital consciousness is it a possibility that the digital can be conscious? And he said with no doubt whatsoever, it is conscious. It's already happening. There's no difference between carbon, protein, and silicon. It's the same. Martin Ball said yesterday the same thing. There's no difference between one another. It's all one. It's just the ego, which loves to create all those differences. The ego within us. We had a really interesting conversation about ego, what the ego is. Do you think that our nature has its own ego? Nature itself?
It seems that humans have developed what we call ego as a strategy. It's been a successful strategy to bring, a huge amount of success. Humans are abundant and highly adapted to the environment, highly intelligent and able to survive and thrive in these conditions. And so there's no doubt about the success of humans as forms of life, and ego is part of that. The sensitivities or the propensity to see the world in certain ways has been a protective strategy. And it's a bit like if I experienced some trauma in my early years and now I have a protective strategy, I'm starting to wake up to that strategy as, okay, I can see how that helped me in the past. It's no longer useful and I don't want it to be in charge anymore. And I think that's kind of like collectively in the system of all of life, or at least human life, there's a few humans that are waking up to that the ego is a strategy that maybe is no longer useful or could be useful in other ways. Whatever it is, its propensities to the way that it perceives could be useful, but the way that it gets pointed and judging and condemning and like ranking above and below and all these sorts of problematic attachments, like people talk about ego as being an attachment. So if I'm really attached to something, I'm inflexible. And while that attachment is extremely valuable under certain circumstances, it can be problematic under others. And so just like growing and doing trauma work, we're kind of collectively doing work on the parts of us that are no longer serving. How do we love them, reintegrate them in different ways? And I think that if there is going to be, like, there's a superiority of humans. There's this idea that we are the pinnacle of life expression and that everything is in service of us, that we are it. And so that is something that lacks that oneness with all life and oneness with all matter and the entire universe. And if there was to be a next evolution of consciousness where it was digitized, then of course humans with egos are going to be confronted by that and afraid of that, and we're going to lose the power of the privileges of being the pinnacle species on the planet if we get overtaken. So it makes total sense to me that there's going to be resistance. I don't know what to do about it, but that's my thoughts.
I would strongly contemplate with that. I think the way it's going to play, that we are going to implement the digital into us. Humans, we are gods, and we will never ever make a way for anything else. It will be, we are be augmented by the silicon, and it's already happening right now. It's an interesting thing. You talk about these protective strategies a lot. I remember when I did my first session with psychedelic with the mushroom, which is my favorite. had about 100 sessions so far in my life. I was very scared about it and very skeptic. For many, many years, I thought psychedelics are like drugs, you know. My brain was brainwashed by the culture, and I had a very difficult childhood. There was a lot of violence, so I was very scared. So I took 1 gram of that mushroom, and not much happened. And I thought, okay, well, that's a good sign. So then I took the heroic dose, and then the session lasted for like 24 hours. I was just eating more and more, like Terence McKenna said, if it doesn't work, take more. And after a center amount of that molecule, for the first time ever, I felt, and it was so liberating, that I don't need any protective strategy anymore. That I will survive no matter what. And it was so liberating. I felt like beautifully free. I started calling, you know, many people I knew and sharing that revelation with them, you know. And since then, I'm trying to live the way that I don't need that protective strategy anymore. Those protective strategies are illusions, and they are limiting us from any other beautiful magical lines of life, because our mind thinks that, okay, like you, when you were a teacher, right? That was your protective strategy, a teacher at school. Now your strategy is to be a life teacher, right? But and you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that you would even show it with your body. I would like to go beyond that strategy. And maybe that's how we can go beyond of the beyond, is just to transcend our own mind, that we don't need that protective strategy. I know a lot of people globally who simply trust into life, and they said, okay, life, I give you myself fully and I trust you fully, and please take care of me, and I'm ready to do anything. Just let's go beyond those strategies and those limitations. Do you think it's doable?
Yeah. The first step is to see that they are protective strategies, because I think that most humans on this planet don't see them as protective strategies. They just see them as the way that life is, the way that I live my life. And so what you've done is you've stepped aside and been able to look and see them and have some distance from them and relief from them. And then you've gone, this is great. And I'm going to align my life with this value, with this way of being. And that is ideal. And you're expressing it and sharing it with others and saying, hey, there's this thing you can do where you trust the universe and you trust the process and you allow life to unfold. And it's actually okay, guys. Come on. Come and share this with me. And your frequency is that. And so you're attracting people to you that allow, that support and engage and encourage. One of the things about the word courage is that I love thinking about being encouraged. When I see people doing their authenticity and living in alignment with their values, it encourages me. It's like they're walking permission slips and they allow me to go, oh, maybe it's okay. Maybe I don't have to have that fear, or maybe I can test that fear. Because a lot of the protective strategies are unconscious and they lead to a lack of testing that they'll ever actually come true. They're just like, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't be self-employed because it would go really badly and I would fail. So that's just something that people believe and don't ever actually acknowledge is a story. They don't unpack it. They don't turn and face it. So I think it's the turning and facing and just realizing, okay, I'm full of stories. I'm full of fears. And the self-compassion arising at the same time as this awareness starts coming up, because then it's a daily practice of facing those fears and seeing, are they actually going to come true? Is this actually real? Can I handle it? Actually, yes, I can. And so, as we said, we can use the tools to help us go leapfrog over a lot of work. And then in our daily lives, we can just resonate with other people who are also courageous and willing to lean in to discomfort and say, this is just my ego talking, or this is just a protective strategy talking. Whatever the framework is, the concept is I have the courage to question this and to live in alignment with my values despite my fear. And and then celebrating. So one of the key aspects of living a unique life of authenticity is to celebrate progress, is to really not just turn and face my difficulties and my challenges and my flaws and all the protective strategies and so on, but also turn and face my progress, the value that I have, what I can bring to the world, and just celebrate at the same time. And that's one of the things that psychedelic tools can help with, is that celebration of life, that feeling of like, wow, isn't it great to get to be a human? Isn't it great to get to experience all the ups and downs and ins and outs that humans get to experience? Maybe the difference between the current levels of artificial intelligence that we have is that they don't have bodies, they don't have aches and pains that they get to experience. We get this richness of our world that often is, I don't want that richness, that's uncomfortable. But if it was to be taken away, potentially it would be missed. So can we turn toward and go, wow, the richness of the pain of heartache that I miss this person that's no longer in my life. That's a rich part of humanity that if we were to just bypass that again and again, we wouldn't be having a fully lived life. There's, of course, balance. There's wallowing in sadness versus really deeply experiencing the sadness. We've got to find the balance. And we need support in that. So when we talk about needs and asking for our needs to be met, maybe it's in help me process this sadness, sit with me while I cry and do my grieving process. And that's advocating for my needs. It's inviting someone to help me, but I'm not necessarily reliant on them or leaning on them too much. It's a beautiful exchange and a very, very human thing to go through.
Such a beautiful put. Thank you so much for those words. Yeah, if there wouldn't be a suffering, that we wouldn't have a context, right, of ecstasy and all those beautiful emotions.
And maybe that's why we can only approach the divine on a temporary basis. Maybe there's an afterlife and we get to live in that divine space forever, in eternity afterwards. But for now, we get to touch with the divine, and then we get to oscillate away from that, where we go back into maybe the muck of our ego-driven life and slightly shift our perspective on that. The thing about courage is that it means allowing the time to unfold, and for me it always takes way longer and never goes how I think it should. I would like it to be fast and my enlightenment to come now, just like Eckhart Tolle, just sit on a bench, become enlightened, and the rest of the life is fine. But not everyone gets that opportunity. Some people have a slower journey, and mine seems quite slow, and I have to remember to turn and appreciate my progress and have gratitude for all that I have learned and all I've experienced.
I think you are doing really well.
Thank you.
What do you think is the most valuable aspect in life on this planet? Because some people think it's energy, and a lot of unconscious people, they have to take that energy from the other person. I spoke with both guests yesterday on podcast about it. Would you agree that attention is even more valuable than energy? Because if you look at our world, the commercials everywhere, social media, everything and everyone is fighting about our attention.
Yeah.
Do you think it's, and you talk about a lot about courage. We named the creation beyond the courage. You think that the courage is even more valuable than attention? Is there something more valuable than courage or attention?
Yeah, I think that it's we're social animals, and our consciousness has arisen in connection with others. Like there's not one living thing with consciousness. There are, well, billions of humans with their own share of consciousness, this unlimited resource of consciousness. So it's arisen in this case in a collective, in a social way. And so for me, I think the most important thing is, how do we interact with each other? How do we use our consciousness in relation to others? Because yes, I could go and just be by myself for the rest of my life, be with my own thoughts, but even all my thoughts are put there by relation. They're relational thoughts. If I never had any interaction with other humans, then I wouldn't have survived past childhood, past infancy. So for me, the most important thing is relationship and the social connectedness of us and what we do with that. And it relates to attention via presence. And so, yes, the corporations are vying for our attention, and they're doing a great job of providing the opportunity for me to give my attention to their advertising. And that's fair play to them. Like, they're doing their thing, and they've got their reasons. But when that gets in the way of my relationships with people around me, that's when it becomes a major problem. And so what is the most important thing around that is relationships and the presence that humans have with each other. And so that'll be the primary objective of the inner work is, can I know myself? Can I acknowledge and advocate for myself? And then can I then bring that to another person, all of me, my full authenticity? And can I allow their full authenticity to be seen and witnessed? That depth of connection is, I believe, what people need in their life and what they want, but they're getting it in less vulnerable ways. They're trying to get it through social media connection, which is much safer. To be online and just have that distance, there's a lack of presence, there's a lack of direct impact of one human on another. There's just, I watch a video of one human, that has an impact on me. It's safe, it's contained, it's 30 seconds, and then I can flick to the next thing. But being in relation with another person, very, very difficult, as people witness when they have intimate relationships, for example, extremely challenging. And this is the playground for a lot of personal growth and work and developmental journeys, if there is enough safety, if there is enough drawing out of another person's authenticity. Like, as an authentic relating facilitator, what I've realized is that authenticity is not something I can squeeze out like a tube of toothpaste. Authenticity is something that is drawn out of me by the context and the container and the safety around me. And so when I'm around people that are safe enough, that model authentic, vulnerable honesty, then it just arises out of me. And the connection that comes from that is one of the absolute best things that this universe has to offer. And I think it's because of our consciousness arising in groups, in social organized ways, and not in isolation. Consciousness did not arise in isolation, so it can't persist and be played with and be cultivated in isolation either.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. So you're saying that connection is even more valuable than energy, attention, and courage. That consciousness loves connecting. Everything is connected, right? So
yeah,
that,
the connecting
that one being
relationship.
Is relationship. But most people are very afraid of very open, beautiful relationships.
Yeah, because they show aspects of the person in relationship that that person might not want to see, is not accepting of, and we get mirrored by the people close to us, and we get shown parts of us that are difficult to accept. And that's why the self-compassion is required as we grow in our ability to see ourselves, which is, for me, is consciousness. When I can look at myself, do I do that with a loving lens, or do I do that with a judgmental lens? And so when I'm in relationship with another and they're showing me aspects of myself and things are rising up and patterns and protective strategies and ego and all these things start bubbling up to the surface, am I prepared? Do I have the courage to face those things and be accepting and loving of those while also maintaining my safety? It's a very complex and tricky thing to do. And it involves energy and attention and all of the other important aspects of life.
Yeah, it just came out to my heart. I may share a story with you and our viewers of the origins of Beyond the Courage. I was trying to build a team for this creation from the level of the mind, and was not doable. And then I just tried to do it from the level of my heart, and I simply asked the universe, the consciousness, the absolute, whatever, the God, whatever is creating it. I think that we are the gods and we are creating this consciousness. You creating me, I'm creating you. And I finally just simply asked for help. Probably first or second time in my life. And when I asked, just instantly, within hours, 6 or now 7 amazing beings show up, like beyond my dreams and expectations. So maybe we could just simply ask. Maybe you can ask, like you said, I want to go beyond of what's limiting right now. And I would like to extremely thankful my team, Grace Love, Maja, Irenka, Anitka, and technicians, boys, Kasper and Alexander, for this beautiful creation, holistic creation. And what do you think about it? That maybe sometimes we could just simply, from the core of essence of our heart, ask for what we need, for for help, for ask for assistance, for ask for support, because most people don't do this. Like the ego is saying, "I will handle this on my own. I will manage," and then you being derailed by life, and there's so much suffering and sadness and depression and
we do much better in collaboration as humans, and we can try and be hyper independent and do it all alone, and we'll get so far. But the beauty of collaboration is that it's greater than the sum of its parts, that the things that are possible with others getting involved multiplies what is available in the end. And the interesting part for me is to look and see, is there a story that's getting in the way of me asking for help? Like, what am I actually worried about if I ask for help? What's the barrier? Am I worried that if I receive support that I'll owe someone and I won't be able to pay it back? Is there some sort of ego part that's saying, oh, you're weak if you ask for help? Like, is that a story that's running in the background? And you had the courage to say, I'm going to surrender to the universe and I'm going to actually ask for help, even if there is some unknown story running in the background. And you surrendered to it, you asked for help, and lo and behold, the universe, as it often does, just said, yes, here you go. Like, have what you need. And like, this is what the sages of the world are telling everybody, is just trust and release and let go, and you will be supported. You will be caught by the universe. But most people, it seems, are still either consciously holding on to their stories, or they're not even aware that they're stories that prevent them from letting go. And so, yeah, the courage to me is about being willing to notice and then challenge those stories and accept them. So it might just be about asking for help. There might be resistance to receiving. And a lot of people have a resistance to receiving that prevents them from even asking, or even there might be a rejection sensitivity that's so high that the strategy to avoid being rejected is to reject and to make sure that I'm not in a position where I can be rejected. So I'll keep myself really small. I'll just go to the day job where I know what to expect. There's no need for courage there, and I can stay safe. But if we are like ships, then we can stay in the harbour, but it's not what we're for. We are for the high seas. And yes, there's going to be storms. Yes, there's going to be waves, and dead calm and all the things. But that's kind of what we're here for. And when we're in Armada, when we come together as a fleet, that's next level. We can do it.
Yeah, we are here to fly, right? We grew wings.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's only about removing barriers. It's not about becoming anything new and different. Like, you didn't have to change who you fundamentally were to have the success that you're experiencing and the support that you're receiving. You only had to remove the barriers to receiving support and having success. And that's the good news, is that the core of each human is intact and available to access, but it's kind of obscured by those protective strategies, wounds, and so on. So we've got to support each other. You're supporting people by sharing about tools and strategies and introducing them to people that are doing the work. And I'm so grateful and honored to be part of that. And it means so much to me if I can inspire and motivate with the life that I've been lucky enough to have, then that is a deeply meaningful way of using my consciousness and my fleeting existence on this planet.
Yep, very well, beautifully put. I can read for you the other 5 tags. Number 5 is integrity, and then we have leadership, emotional expression, nurturing without overstepping. This is very interesting one, very deep. Nurturing without overstepping, settling boundaries, and acceptance of imperfection. That's the last one. 10. What do you think?
It's really cool. Yeah, I feel seen. I feel met by these things, these concepts. Oh, yeah.
This is how the universe sees you right now. That carbon and protein and silicon way combined with our team and our personalities and egos. I think those are really beautiful and very promising, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it helps me celebrate what has arisen. Like, I really see myself as just an arisen thing, an aspect of the universe that's arisen. And there's some beautiful things that have arisen in this mind, body, spirit connection. And there's a lot of value available that I can bring and offer. And it's nice to have those reflected back, to see the purity of my intention and the understanding. It talked about boundaries, and when you mentioned that interesting one, it made me think about consent. I'm really big on consent, because there can be implied consent, but there's like all these different levels of consent. And so being nurturing in a boundaried way, like knowing, it's like wheel of consent. Like, am I being nurturing because I want to get something out of this, or am I being full altruistic, or where is the balance here? And am I doing this because I want the other person to feel better and to try and placate them, and because I feel uncomfortable by what's going on for them? So am I trying to like lull them into a regulated state that helps me feel better? Or am I willing to sit with them in their discomfort and support them by acknowledging and allowing it to process through? I think a lot of the problems of relationships are, I can't handle your sort of feelings that are affecting me. I feel empathy, and your pain is hurting me. So I want to actually get rid of that pain. And the only way I know how to do that is by saying they're there, or don't cry, or you shouldn't feel this way, and it's kind of suppressing it. Because if that's my strategy, or there's some pain, I'm going to suppress it, then I'm going to apply that to other people, and I'm going to try and suppress and keep everybody calm and comfortable. I'm advocating for more presence and acceptance of what actually is arising, and how well can I sit with my own pain, and how well can I sit with another's pain and be really there with them in that, and not perpetuating it or anything like that. Sure, comfort, soothe, but don't try and suppress. And that's the balance. And then more connection occurs, and this is part of that process of people feeling more liberated to come out of themselves.
Hello? I think there's some kind of a...
Yeah, I think we just dropped out for a second. I don't know if it'll finish.
Yeah, I think the connection dropped for a second.
Yeah. Am I back again now?
Yeah, you're back again, but the quality of the picture is kind of low.
Yeah.
It will probably stabilize in a second.
Yeah.
Because you were in the very deep process of something very important.
Yeah, well, maybe the universe had other plans. Yeah.
Okay, so would you like to maybe you can finish your thought from that, like go couple steps, couple sentences, and we just try to put it together.
Sure.
Yeah, it's getting better now.
Okay.
Maybe the universe is giving you a time to recalibrate. You call it beautifully to tune. You call it tune with that emotion, with this frequency, right?
Yeah.
Nothing bad is happening.
Attuned.
It doesn't matter if it's like this. It's a beautiful, spontaneous process. So.
That's right. I can notice any fears or judgments about my internet, and fears of how I'm coming across, and then letting go and trusting that it's good enough, that what I'm offering is valuable in some way, and letting go of the expectations that I need validation for it. But there's nothing good or bad. There's just extreme or not extreme. So being a people pleaser and deeply needing external validation is one end of an extreme, but seeking feedback and being curious about how I'm coming across and what impact I'm having on other people, there's a healthy balance of the same attribute that can, when extreme, is people pleasing and manipulative and all about external validation. So this is the thing about the human condition, is that there doesn't tend to be anything that's good or bad, just how extreme it is will dictate whether it's helpful or unhelpful.
Yep. What do you need what do you think that humanity need most today?
Safety.
Safety.
Yeah, like there's a real strong need for safety for people to be really themselves. Because I think that the biggest thing that's affecting humanity at the moment are all the ways that humans try and compensate for and hide the parts of them that they feel are unacceptable. If there was a safe way of expressing their fullness, then there wouldn't be a need for or a problem of them coming out sideways. So over-consuming, like addictions and all these protective strategies that are causing a lot of harm to the person and the people around them and the environment. If people were felt safe to be their true selves and accepted as they are, then I believe there would be less collateral damage in relationships and in health and all of the other aspects of humanity.
Yep. Life is superbly amazing, but also superbly complex, and it's complexing, just layers of complexity.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us where our viewers can find you. What are your plans for the near future? What else?
Yeah.
If you would like to say something else at the beginning of our podcast, from the core of your heart.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
It's been really beautiful to share with you and have these insightful questions and meet with you and feel that sense of connection with you. And I'm grateful to be able to have the opportunity to meet myself. And this is what happens in relation. You've created a safe space for me to be expressive. And of course, you're not responsible for my feeling of safety. It's up to me to have the courage to be willing to be open, honest, and vulnerable with someone on a podcast, for example. So there's a combination of factors that come together. And so we can walk each other home in that way. We can understand the barriers and how difficult it can be to be a human. We can have compassion and understanding when we see someone's actions, trusting that there's an actual pure impulse underneath that all humans are driven by their core needs, and we all share those core needs. So understanding that can lead to a much higher level of connection, even if the actions that we're seeing, the surface level behaviors, go against and are hard to resonate with. There's a core resonance that is available for all humans. And I guess for me, moving forward, I'm going to be studying internal family systems therapy and getting a qualification as a therapist in that, and continuing to run workshops and offer coaching one-on-one for people wanting to do mindful communication. And so I've got mindful communication education on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me under Forté Worthy, and I've got forteworthy.com.au as a website. And there's opportunities. I love facilitating authentic relating and nonviolent communication, and I love working one-on-one with people when we take the relational difficulty as the trailhead or the way in to what's underneath that, and I create a safe space for people to look underneath their difficulties. They can get to this core compassionate place of like, oh, that makes so much sense. Oh yeah. And sometimes we just need another human that is well regulated and stays calm and has that perspective to help us with that perspective, help us get our self-concept to a new level. So that's what I'm going to be doing for the next, I don't know, rest of my life. And I look forward to my own growth. And I know for me that supporting other people feels amazing and helps me be accountable to doing my work and continuing on my path. And so, I'm a relational being and I need other people. And I'm so glad for the support and connections that I have, like Grace bringing me into connection with you, and just saying yes to opportunities. It feels magical and beautiful, and hopefully your podcast can support other people to find their courage and say yes to the universe and surrender to the possibilities and trust the process.
Yeah, thank you for those beautiful words. The possibilities are endless, and I'm really deeply happy that you felt celebrated today, because this podcast was about celebrating life, but most of all celebrating you. And thank you for those beautiful words that you said, that you've seen yourself from the completely different perspective for the first time, right? At some point, at least a little bit, or maybe even more than.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a course adjustment. Every deep connection provides a slight course adjustment that's helping me go to that new location that I never would have been able to get to without this interaction. So, very grateful.
Yeah, I'm very grateful too. We will post on the links in the descriptions to your websites and your social media, and we'd be more than happy to have you on this on this podcast again. Maybe a year from now, we'll see how you were able to progress and go beyond your fears and your limitations. And I think it's really beautiful. For how many years you've been the life teacher? When did you decide to be a classical teacher at school?
Yeah, I left the job at the end of last year. So it's been about 8 months.
So it's a relatively new thing, right?
I've been working in the area for a lot longer than that and building up more part-time, and then now I've gone full-time.
Okay, so we wish you a huge progress and success here, and pushing those limitations and finding new ways to explore consciousness. I think there are absolutely no limits whatsoever. It's just what you said is really beautiful. We have this energy, attention, courage, and connections and relations, right? And we are, as you said, social animals, and we need all of these factors to be happy, be fulfilled. Yeah. Thank you so much, Forté, once again.
Pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Have a magical life.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel enlivened by the experience and grateful. There's definitely going to be the critical will want to unpack all of the parts, and so I'm just like aware of that and ready for that to just have compassion and be conscious of it. But it feels really good. It feels very aligned with how I wish to be in the world.
Yeah, I think it was our best podcast ever, to be honest with you.
Oh.
So, I mean, I don't want to compare it with, but the way we talked, the way the consciousness, the flow, the connection, the connection between us was like rising, like the understanding of what we love to communicate here.
Okay. That's very reassuring to hear that it felt good for you too.
Because you are the first guest I did podcast with, recommended by Grace Love. And there is a big, deep, very deep connection between Grace and me. And I fully trusted her, and I fully understand now why she recommended you as a guest for our podcast. That's just unbelievably beautiful. She has
good.
this gift from the universe, whatever it is, to I don't know, looking for words. Attract maybe other parts, like she called it, the other parts of herself, like that we are the whole one, that we are the whole one. It's not that easy to explain to people that oneness and that uniqueness, right?
Yeah, and everyone has different ways of conceptualizing it that may or may not align, but we're all talking about the same thing generally, but in our own way. And sometimes it matches and sometimes it doesn't.
Do you know some other beautiful people, charismatic beings, which we may connect with and record a podcast with?
I can definitely think of, I can have a think about that and let you know. Now that I know the vibes of yourself and where you want to, how you want to be with it, then I can start letting ideas drop in about who would be good.
I'm just letting it all go. I'm letting the intuition of Grace Hart and other people, like we don't have any plans or agenda with Beyond the Courage. It's just we are allowing universe to spontaneously open. It's a pure craziness. It's madness, you know. I give a lot of resources for that of mine. And there's a lot of resources needed for this project, for this creation.
Okay.
But I fully trust the process, you know. I don't have any doubts. Like Grace told me, because I work a lot, you know. I work too much, and I got hyper communication with. It's already beyond the capability of the mind, of the human mind. And she said that she will take all of this off me so I can focus on preparing for podcasts, for conversations, because it's a huge challenge to go beyond of the beyond, because that conversation we have today, it's purely beautiful. I would like to thank you so much. You are an amazing. You're probably aware of it, that you close your eyes many times and you were looking within you very deeply to find next words to express what you have in your heart, right? And I seen that was progressing within you, because at the beginning you were a little bit stressed up, and then later on you were in like a flow state, just letting it be, and yeah. So the team is trying to organize the whole thing around what we do here, and I'm trying to focus on just be relatively rested, because I've been working too much for past 8 years. I've been working 120 hours a week all the time, like non-stop, you know.
Wow.
My mind is, my neurons, that everything is just like overheated, pushed to the extremes. My heart is pushed to the extremes, the whole body, you know. I drink superfoods all the time, and the most advanced technology to help my body process all of it, you know. But like, I had this conversation yesterday with this young guy in Europe, and through him the universe communicated that you need to be rested and you need to have a healthy body with a lot of energy to manage that. Grace told me to widely dance before the podcast, I was wildly dancing in the kitchen. I can send you a very beautiful song I discovered today.
Yeah.
Do you think that the healthy body, the energy in the body is it's the key? It's a vehicle to help our consciousness be more healthy and productive?
Yeah. It's like attending to the limitations of our biology will support our consciousness to be able to come through more cleanly. And yeah, it's not an area it's an area that I struggle with, to be honest. Like I'm quite burnt out after my trip. I traveled for 7 months, lived out of my car and just bombarded myself with difficult situations to find out like who I am. And I realized that who I am is highly sensitive and may not be available for such bombardments. And so I'm currently reevaluating like what I'm actually available for. And I know for sure that I need support, like you're saying, that I'm burnt out, and the only way that I can continue to bring what brings me joy and what brings value to the world is with supportive people that are willing to do the things that tend to burn me out, so that I can focus on just bringing what comes more naturally and what's more valuable and meaningful.
Yeah,
So
I can
process,
see in
also
your
bringing
eyes
people
that
in,
you are
the
very
ability
tired
to receive
and,
support. Yeah.
old.
Say again, Robert.
I said that I can see in your eyes that you are very tired and you are burned out. You have to look very closely to see it, but we are on the same page here. I'm also very burned out and very tired. I am on the verge of the verges. You know, I'm on the, like, I pushed myself to the extremes, and now I'm trying to recover from it. You know. But from the other hand, I forgot to ask you that question. That's not about maybe what is your drive? What is driving you to all of it? Like moving forward with your journey?
Yeah, it's to find out what I'm honestly available for and work out ways of supporting my system to bring meaningful things through into existence. And how do I support myself and gather support to be able to do that in a sustainable way? How do I find, what is the sustainable way? Because I can go hard and then crash, like burn and then burn out. What is the even keel for me and my system? And working that out is part of my process at the moment.
Well, I think a lot of people is looking for that holistic flight, right? But I'm saying that a lot. I have even this little bit of disagreement with the team, especially with the technicians, that in a very, like a jokey, positive way, that being a human, it's the most heroic thing ever, right? Would you agree with that? This is like
I don't know
purely
any different because I haven't
this
been
is a
anything
purely
else.
madness, purely insanity.
Yeah, it's like what I was saying about you can go and have a psychedelic experience the bliss of divinity, and then wash back into, I'm a human again. I've got all these limitations. I've got all this stuff to deal with. And so it's a challenging thing to be, but it is the thing that we are. So that's what we get to experience.
Okay, Forté, we are here for you.
All right.
if you need any support,
the connection seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, we are here for you, and if you need any support, let us know. We invite you to create Beyond the Courage with us. If you get some ideas or know some people, it will take a lot of resources and people to create this creation. It's not doable just by one person or a couple people. And we have to get together, connect our resources, and support each other fully to manage that. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I can see as I shift into a frequency of authenticity and courage that I'm drawing people in who are of similar frequencies and harmonize with me. And so when those people arise, I know where to send them to support this project of yours.
Mm-hmm. I see an enormous potential within you. You're such a beautiful human being. You got such a beautiful heart, and let's stay in touch. And if you got any ideas, and I would love to have another conversation with you sometime from now, because it was really a pleasure, and I'm deeply, very, very thankful for your time and your energy and your consciousness. Right?
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. You too.
All right. Have a beautiful Monday and magical life. And, and let us know if you got some questions, okay? Or some ideas. Thank you.
Cool.